Are we recording?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Where the cat went?
Somebody commented about starting a crime syndicate. It's right there on the recording. Yeah. Busted. All right. Well, this is Blacktop Pulpit. This is our week for Blacktop Pulpit. And the sermon today was about money. Last week it was about the end of the world. I mean, the eschaton, which is not quite the end of the world.
Not quite.
So we can talk about both things today. I am Andrew. I'm here with Ken. Welcome to Blacktop Pulpit. Ready for me to ask my question?
No, I'm just going to walk out and leave you by yourself.
I just preached a sermon again if you did that.
You would, wouldn't you?
So what did you think, man, about what the text presented us with this morning and last week?
One of my first reactions was that an acknowledgement that people do try to use this as a tithing passage.
Yeah.
And it's not, which I was glad you articulated clearly. And fine, you want to take principles and apply it to giving and stuff like that. Great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But let's not try to carry over, Old Covenant tithing by using passages like 1 Corinthians 16.
No, if we're going to apply the Old Testament concept of tithing in the modern day, it's going to be something like paying our national taxes come tax time. That's more akin to Old Testament tithing than giving an offering at church.
Yeah.
So it's the only reason people ever started teaching a New Testament sort of tithe is because they wanted to, even if they wouldn't have phrased it this way, right? But almost like guilt people into giving to the church. Like, this is your mandate under God to give 10% of your income to the church. But it's never a command in Scripture.
No, that's one of those abuses in many churches today. And way to really ruin people's joy in giving.
I know,
you're
right?
telling them that they have to. What are you doing with your people? Like, how do you teach faithfully and then try to instill in people a joyful giving attitude and say, by the way, 10% is your minimum. It's like, if you really want to be joyful, then you're going to give 11, 12, 15, 20%.
Okay. So I once had a preacher stand before the congregation. I was in the congregation. I don't remember which church this was. I don't remember the name of the preacher who said this. It's been a while. But he literally stood up and said, "You can give, but are you giving until it hurts?"
Oh, man.
And started making people feel guilty if they weren't giving in a way that seemed sacrificial enough.
Jeez.
And it's like that. God doesn't do that. God doesn't oppress His people like that.
No.
He's not a tyrant who rules in order to get taxed. He doesn't need to collect taxes.
He needs nothing.
He needs nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad Paul made the point he did here. It's out of your prosperity that you give, not out of your poverty. When we ask for money, we want people to give out of their prosperity, not out of their poverty. Now, if you give out of your poverty, and I mentioned this morning too, if you do give out of your poverty, you are praised in heaven.
Right.
But understand, it's voluntary. Nobody wants to require that of you. Not at Douglas Reformed Church or the church in Douglas.
Definitely not.
Not at Douglas.
Did you say the only
church?
church?
Only. That would be so wrong.
The only church that probably doesn't compel you to give.
So here's what makes this quite a different breed. Because instead of saying we are the best church in all of Douglas, our theology is Reformed, so we're probably we're probably the most wretched church in all of Douglas.
We're the most wretched.
Come join us.
Come join the fellow
join
wretches.
Us, you wretches.
No two-faced fakeness going on here. My goodness.
Man, I hope not.
That made me think when it was the idea of the Old Covenant Israel. It's like, what would that look like if we were to reinstitute that type of structure and hierarchy here in the United States? Can you imagine?
Man.
We'll call him Pope Biden. What a disaster that would be.
The Holy American Emperor. Oh.
And people in power right now would fit perfectly like the leaders of Israel did. Just being two-faced and hypocritical and not following God's law.
Many of them, yeah, I'm sure. Well, and it's sort of weird because here we are, and we hope to be a bright, shining light, right? And we hope that people, they're not listening to these now, that they will, right? And here we are saying, instead of giving all your money to the church so that the church can prosper monetarily, instead of doing that, we actually want you to take care of your families.
Oh, yeah.
Like how?
My goodness.
Like how much light does that bring to the gospel of Jesus Christ and the desires that God actually has, and what a sincere local church encourages people to do, rather than just saying, you need to give more so we can reach more people with the gospel. Look, God's going to reach people with the gospel.
Well, I mean, one of the strong areas of focus for, and this isn't like a distinctive of our church. This is like the gospel.
This is Christianity.
Yeah, this is Christianity.
That's what this is.
It's families. The families is God's model of discipleship. So we want strong families. Yeah. And if, dads aren't working hard and taking care of their families and whether it's like providing the basics, food and shelter and entertainment, I was going to say that is not a necessity. Yeah. But then going on to entertainment, taking out vacations, having a good time as, family, get your kids some bikes and, like basketball hoops, like that's the stuff. These are gifts that God has given. He wants you to prosper. He wants good things. Like he loves you. Talking about like how good God is. It's like, look at you people, you wretches. As if somebody would ask you for a fish, what do you say? Give him a snake or something like that. It's like it's like good grief. It's like and then God the Father is.
He's good.
A perfect Father who gives perfectly and wants us to enjoy good things.
That too is like one of the advantages. So you mentioned the importance of family. Scripture mentions the importance of using our finances to take care of our families first, and then if we have prosperity, then to give to the local church so other people can be cared for, right? So we have the importance of family in Scripture, and then we have the idea of a family integrated church. Okay.
Heresy in a lot of circles.
Because in most circles you have a youth ministry, a separatist ministry, right? Separates the youth out from the rest of the church, and the church says, we need the church to give more money so that we can invest more money into our youth programs, right? In order to get the gospel into our youth and invest all this money denominationally into all this research on how to keep children in church, when the answer is actually really simple when it comes to a biblical family unit and the way church, I think, ought to be done according to Scripture, right? Mm-hmm. Family integration in the church, where the families are responsible for training their children, and then the church requires less money to invest in programs. Denominations require less money to do this meaningless research. Families are raising their children, and the finances that stay within that family, because the church doesn't need them now, we're family integrated, right? Mm-hmm. The finances that stay within that family are actually being used by parents to raise children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. And the church, the elders of the church, are investing into parents and equipping parents and training parents to do that, to be the primary disciples in their children's lives. So this is altogether just a wonderful, beautiful thing. And the church just used to be this way.
It did, yeah. But we got creative
at the advent of Sunday school and youth ministry. Virtually every church diverted away from this, but it is a better system.
Right.
Vodi Bakum calls this system of youth ministry and Sunday school programming he called it an 80-year failed experiment, and that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, and it hasn't produced good results.
Right.
For the most part. Right. Well, some good has come out of it, because God always works things together for good.
It's produced horrendous results. Yeah. I mean, you look at, this is again one of the problems with self-fulfilling prophecies is you don't recognize how bad theology in so many areas is so destructive for the world, right. Holistically, like believers and unbelievers alike. It's like the idea of taking this, this was like the modernization of production in America too. Like we adopted the same mentality and applied it to the church, which is like this conveyor belt, this grouping and efficiency. Mm-hmm. It's like if we're going to raise people, let's raise them in categories, and we'll do it in bigger numbers with less people teaching them, and then we could be more efficient. But the desire to be more strategic and efficient and unbiblical has caused people to actually do worse, and as you articulated, be less resourceful because you're spending it in areas that God has not purposed and designed.
That's God's money.
And it doesn't work. Yeah. And now look at today, the self-fulfilling prophecy is, like the idea that the world's getting worse and worse, and so many people are becoming apostate, like we're going to see so many people just abandon the faith. The world's
getting worse and worse.
Yeah, that's that self-fulfilling prophecy, man. And
you were post-mill.
I'm using the example of what we have created. My generation, the generation that I was supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be post-mill. I'm supposed to be like doomsday. Everything's gonna burn in hell. I'm the generation. You're the generation. We were raised in this nonsense that this like youth group, youth pastors. This get in your age group, because you don't belong with the teenagers or the adults. Like nobody's getting evangelized properly, brought up in the church, evangelized in the church.
My son's 4 years old. Yeah. He can sit longer than 4 minutes.
Right. Oh my goodness gracious. Where do we get the things that we come up with? Yeah. Like you have a 4-year-old, you can't have your 4-year-old sitting in church? That's mind-blowing to me.
That's the best place for him to sit.
It is the best place for him to be. Oh my goodness. But that's the mentality so many people have. It's so destructive. Yeah. And how do we see these rabbit trails? We're talking about offerings, and we talk about family integrated churches. Welcome to Blacktop, right?
Blacktop. I have another question. What the heck's an NFT?
Are you gonna sing?
What the?
a non-fungible token, but it sounds funnier than it really is. It's actually really cool. But I guess if we're talking about money. Giving,
mm-hmm.
Man, that you brought that up too. It's the idea. Well, they probably didn't. Well, no, they didn't probably not have any type of.
They definitely.
definitely didn't have technology.
If I said
in that
probably,
form.
It was to be ironic. Okay.
They probably didn't have email. They definitely didn't have blockchain technology. But if you think about it, like even how fast things are going, like even the idea of ministries receiving cryptocurrencies as like monetary gifts is like, it's so past that already. Like you can buy, sell, and trade NFTs as gifts and as monetary value. Like it's just going so quickly. Thankfully, with the geek at heart that I am, it's not one of those things I'm like, it's going so quickly, it's just beyond me. Like, no, man, like I'm right at the forefront of this. Like I love this. I see rabbit trail. Beep beep.
That's why we're here.
I see cryptocurrency as a freeing from tyranny and the destruction and evil that is inherent in man's hearts. And we have been trying to deal with that for all of existence. And in America, we've done a really good job because we recognized inherently the sinfulness of man. Mm-hmm. How do we protect from what our hearts want? That's what the Constitution does.
Right.
But we're still trying to develop no matter how many laws and governing documents we have, we still have serious corruption issues. It doesn't matter. It seems like, and again in this wasn't in this passage, but you alluded to it, the love of money being the root of all kinds of evils.
1 Timothy 6.
Man, and that's so evident. So you love money, it corrupts you. And was it this passage, or was it also First Timothy that talked about you being, ruined by it? Your love for money is going to ruin you. Mm-hmm. But I think cryptocurrency is an awesome, like, social advancement that's going to free people. It's going to give them financial freedom. It's going to pull the rug out from these huge, power-hungry banks. And I'm not like against big companies inherently, but these banks too, like the majority of these banks that exist today shouldn't, because the government took our money and bailed them out, mm-hmm. right? So again, corruption. You want to run a business, great. You're in financial, great. You failed because of a stock crash or a mm-hmm. depression or whatever it is. You know what? I'm sorry, but that's what happens. Yeah. Every other guy out there that lost his job and his company and everything, they went under. I know, like, realtors were hit mm-hmm. hard during that too, and but corruption, bailing out the big man. That's not going to happen anymore with crypto.
Now there's a concept that was maybe too big isn't the right word, but addressing it during the sermon would have been a little difficult, and that's the idea of entrepreneurialism.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
beautiful.
So I think being an entrepreneur can be very godly. Mm-hmm. I don't think it inherently involves the love of money.
No,
right? But one of the things you're thinking as an entrepreneur is, how can I make more money?
Sure.
That's one of the concepts involved, one of the questions involved. And so for those who are entrepreneurs when it comes to business, how do they approach their own entrepreneurial spirit in a way that doesn't cause them to fall into the trap of loving money, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big question. Because I would want to support entrepreneurialism.
Right.
Like, you want to do something with your life, yes.
Yeah.
Right? But then there's the concept of the love of money, and the sin, the love of money. And it's easy to go from entrepreneurialism right into love of money. And how do we balance that? Like,
well, I would say don't balance it. I would yeah. I mean, if you're getting into creating, into leading or producing something that is a need that isn't there right now, you're pursuing a real godly passion.
Yeah.
And, whether it's wanting to streamline sales of a certain item, or make it easy for people to buy and trade this area, or to, manage businesses because you're like, oh, businesses suck here, and I want them to be great.
That's what we're going to do.
So, yeah. I'm all on board with that, man. That type of thing.
To get started.
Why do you love money so much, bro? But if you're pursuing that, I mean, then you don't, like, whether you make a lot of money or not. I think obviously there's other issues that could pop up there, but inherently that's a good way to just not be burdened with that. Because really, I think the people that pursue entrepreneurship with a desire to make money ultimately do a really crappy job doing whatever they're doing.
Because their goal is not to serve people, it's to make money.
Yeah.
It's not to do well.
Yeah.
It's to make money. And so money becomes the primary issue. So
yeah.
I talk with my boss. So I have a secular job. Secular. It's redeemed by Christ. Christ has that.
It was secular.
It would have been secular if Christ hadn't come and established his kingdom. But Christ has come. He's established his kingdom. And he bound the strong man and took all the strong man's possessions, which includes secular work. Okay, so
that's right.
So this belongs to the Lord too. And I was talking with my boss at that job, and he's as entrepreneurial as it gets. He's always looking for more ways to serve people and more ways to make money.
That's great.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I love that about him. And one of the things he shared with me, which was very enlightening to me, he said growing up, he always worked, and he always worked hard. He always cared about doing a quality job, a good job, right? And he has never been lacking for money because of that, but it wasn't until he founded his company or started his company that he actually realized the work and the money were connected. He was just looking for ways to serve people and to do a good job, right? And that's it. That's the correct entrepreneurial spirit, right there. That's what it is. And that produces quality work. Our hearts are geared towards serving people, not just making money, but actually serving people. And when we make money, that causes us to have a fair spirit, to charge people a fair price, and to provide quality services, quality work. And in the resurrection, since this passage follows Paul's instruction, admonition about the eschaton, right? End times, the resurrection. We say end times, it's the beginning of times. The resurrection, in the resurrection, what does that produce in us? A desire to serve my fellow man justly and unconditionally, to do a good job, to do what I do well, to produce quality products and work, to pay attention to detail. Like, that all comes from a Christian spirit. And whereas if you're of the world, you're plugging into an industry, your objective is to make money, and when you produce products, then you're using lower quality so that you can make more money. And that's one of the things that maybe we need to pay attention to, especially in the West, like where we have historically had just really quality handmade products, but then the quality of those products goes down. Why? Because people are worried about their bottom line rather than serving people. So
and within reason, I can see that. I mean, look at in the church we worship in every week, we have a stove that's older than I am.
Right.
And it
still works
great. It doesn't just work, it works great. And I understand, the problem there is for your business that sells something that lasts a lifetime, you're just going to have to, charge what it's worth. And you'll have to compete more fiercely, because when you can go on to Amazon and get the same product for $2.99 that somebody else could sell for $20, but it's going to last you forever. That's also hard to convince people of. But inherently, absolutely. Because what if everyone were doing that?
Right.
What if the competition wasn't like, I'm gonna kind of rip you off because my stuff that I make is gonna fall apart.
Right.
But it's cheaper for you. There wouldn't be that mentality if everyone just said, you know what, I want to produce good stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's like
just
me
like
too.
that.
Like my stuff, I realize it's a little bit more expensive. You can't just go to the store. I mean, you can go to the store and buy something for cheaper than I would make it for. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to produce quality goods.
Right. It's a hard market to compete in.
It is. Yeah, because people don't want quality so much as cheap, quick quantity. And if I spend $10 and buy 5 pairs of socks, and they start unraveling in a couple months, I'm willing to take that over socks that'll last a lifetime. Right. Cost $40.
Oh man,
it's like it's a real struggle, but the Christian life, what the Bible calls us to, really is quality work.
Right. Make
a good shoe, sell it at a fair price.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's the type of stuff too when it comes to this has been like an ongoing struggle for me when it comes to like local buying. Is there's this mentality like a lot of people have when it comes to buy local, that you should just buy from local businesses even though you're paying twice as much and getting half the quality that you would somewhere else.
Right.
And I don't support that. I'm not going to go, and I have some examples. I'm not going to go there, but because
I'm all for buying local.
Yeah.
But I'm going to qualify that buy local quality.
Yeah, like there are, and just generally, I mean, there's this guy in town like I went to buy from, and I'm not even getting a timeline here, but like I asked, well, how much is this? And what can you do it for? And he's like, it's going to be this much. I'm like, wow. And I'm like, I told him, and this is the big boon, right? Everyone hates Walmart. I said, man, like I want to buy from you, but this is how much it is at Walmart. I don't even want you to match the price, but geez, like it's not even like a better product. It's like the same thing, and I'm like, I can't. Now
if you're giving me a product that is much, much better quality, I'm willing to pay more for it.
For sure.
It'll last me forever.
You got like a furniture maker. I think, is there a name for them?
I don't know.
A
shoemaker's called a cobbler.
Carpenter.
I don't know.
But if like you built tables and chairs, and like I could go to Walmart and get one because they have cheap garbage at Walmart, right? It's like, and I'm not insulting people because I have some of that stuff in my house too,
right?
But like, it's like the stuff you get from Walmart's just junk. It's getting better, but it's still pretty junky. But if there's a local that costs twice as much, but I had it twice the quality, I would buy from that person. But man, make good stuff.
Well, and this is one of the issues that we see in Douglas, right? So if we're just going to bring this down even to our own city, and I'm sure this is true in other places when other people listen to this podcast, man, all you have to do is just walk down one street, and you can see the abysmal state of the properties in Douglas. Right. And that's one thing Christ is redeeming in the world. Like when we are Christians, and when we are given in this world before the resurrection, we call it owning property, right? But when God gives us a piece of property to steward, we want to take care of it and make it look nice.
Right.
And we want it not just to have a good cosmetic feel, but actually to be quality. And when I go and serve people, I want my work to be quality work.
Right.
And that just comes from me being a Christian. And look at this universe and the care that went into putting it together. Like, could you imagine if God didn't care about quality work and he just threw the universe together and didn't give any protection to the earth? We would have all been extinct a long time ago.
Yeah,
right?
Or we'd see this like repetitious supernatural work that God would have to like preserve us from dying and like rebuild His broken creation. Oops, let me fix that.
I didn't put that together very well. Messed up that foundation.
Yeah.
Ooh, tectonics aren't working quite like I hoped they would.
I was too focused on making cattle.
I was a little absent-minded when I did that. Had too many drinks yesterday. No, I don't think God is like that, right? And if we are to be like Him, created in His image, like, could you imagine the care that went into building the pyramids? Like, they didn't rush that.
Yeah. Mathematics
and everything that goes into that. You don't rush something like that. We shouldn't rush any of our work. When we start rushing, that's...
Are you saying that I should start a company and slave a bunch of people to build my product?
Is that what it sounded like I said?
Well, you're talking about the pyramids.
Didn't say we should be just like Egypt.
Do the quality work, just not the enslaving part.
I guess technically it was the Hebrews who were doing the quality work.
Yeah.
Oh, how's that? They're still doing quality work.
Right?
And the temple, like when the Bible describes the temple being
built.
Oh,
yeah.
Like Solomon found all of the master craftsmen of their trade and employed them in the work of the temple. They weren't just throwing things together. Like, these are master craftsmen building Solomon's temple. Like, we even have that example in the Bible. Like, this is how much care you put into your work.
Yeah.
So much that you can step back, like God did in the creation, that you can step back and you can look at your day's work and you can say, that's good.
Yeah.
Right?
There does seem to be a lack of just pride in people's own production of their work, what they're building. And it is a struggle, fundamentally too. Like, we are, like, when we battle the flesh, the things that we desire that are not good. I mean, it's very natural to want something for nothing, and that that takes a change of mind in order to accomplish something like that.
Right.
But then we're being fought, or I would say even fed. Our flesh is being fed our desires when we don't have to work like we used to in order to get what we used to have to produce to get by. So that's there's a lot of things working against us, when it comes to producing in a way that glorifies God.
Right. Well, and also like the idea of, so now people are going to hear this and they're going to be convicted like, dang, I'm lazy. Okay. That's not a bad conviction. It's good when we realize our own laziness.
Right.
When I came out of high school and went into college, I was about as lazy as you could get. Okay. Like lethargic. Typical
college student.
All that. And it took me meeting my wife and getting together with my wife for me to get encouraged to like she's the one who inspired me to, I need to stop being lazy, right? God used her in a mighty, amazing way in my life, right? And then I went straight into workaholism. So that's the other side of this, right? It's so easy to get lost in our work. So how do we find that balance? Because people will use work to distract them from families, to distract them from the responsibilities they have outside of the workplace. And that's wrong too. So that there is a balance here, right? And then people are going to be convicted. And they're like, I need to start doing something with my life. And they're going to have to start learning to do stuff they've never done before. So 7 months ago, I plugged into an industry I never had experience in before.
Right.
No experience using the tools. I'm still learning new tools. Like I didn't even know these tools existed, right? So plug into a new industry, learn what the tools are, how to use the tools, learn what we do, learn what things are called, learn the things and stuff of the trade.
It's a thingamajiggy.
And that's a challenge.
Right.
But when we are in Christ, we actually care to learn it well, right? And that's, a lot of people just don't care to learn stuff well.
Right. It's easy to do. Yeah.
Very easy.
But I think when looking at what would balance that, again, it comes from what motivates your heart.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I wanna just work really hard to produce something great, for the sake of producing something great. That's not a bad motive,
right?
But I think that one's gonna tend to fall flat more often than anything else. Whereas like if you're driven by, and this is like the whole like reality of God in our world and influencing everything we do, is if we say like I love Jesus and I want to honor him with what I do, and you're driven by a love for him to do things that reflect his character, like that's something that's sustainable, beyond just kind of whether it's pragmatism or just interest in a certain field or whatever it might be. And I think that's what makes a big difference. Like with you're saying going off into this new trade, it's like, well, just a simple desire to learn some new tools because it's cool, that's going to be fleeting, like it's going to be
so fleeting.
Yeah. But it's like when it's like, man, like
I
want to do the best I can.
The last 7 months of that, I was just like, I just want to experience using this tool and learn that stuff.
I mean, you do get to drive big tractors, which
that's cool. Yeah.
Pretty legit. I think I might get a part-time job with you just so I can drive the tractors.
No, but when our desire is quite literally to serve people and to see the world renewed in Christ.
Yeah.
Like I'm a Christian. And so one of the things that makes this industry really attractive to me as a Christian and as a post-millennial, right, is I actually have a really active part in seeing the world renewed. Water come to the desert. Like,
jeez, no kidding.
Right?
That's cool.
And so Christ has promised, I'm taking over the world. I am renewing the world. I will never destroy the world again. I'm keeping my promise in Genesis 8 and 9. I made that promise twice in a row so you'd remember it, right? I'm never going to destroy the world again. I am renewing the world. In fact, the Father sent the Son to renew the world, and I am in Christ. And now I have this amazing part in seeing the world renewed. Like, this is my labor, and that's labor in the Lord too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So I'm not just earning a paycheck, but I'm actually serving the Lord while I'm doing work, while I'm laboring. Like, this is part of the world's renewal. And if we started seeing our jobs like that, our labors like that, we would not tire of them so quickly.
Right.
In almost any industry, you can see how God's using it to renew the world.
Yeah.
Even Border Patrol, right? Bringing justice to the world, like Christ promised, and facilitating the peace that Christ promises in the world. Like, you do that every day. That's pretty amazing.
Never heard someone of faith talk positively about being a Border Patrol agent. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I got into the line of work. Justice.
Somebody who gets into politics sincerely and is not just power hungry, right? Every day participating in the renewal of the world.
Right.
Through political systems and through dialogue, through reason. Teachers, a renewal of the world by producing, hopefully, intellectual students who care about asking questions. Preachers and teachers, those who make it a career, spend all of their time in study in order to teach the people of God, right? Study and prayer.
Right.
And then counseling people so that people can make good life decisions. Counselors, showing people, like, this is how Christ is renewing the world in your home, in your family, at your workplace. And it's so real. I don't know how you can look at all the industry around the world that has developed since Christ and say God isn't renewing the world, because
no kidding,
it's obviously happening, right? And people are participating in that when they're in, even heathens who are in industries, God is using them to renew His world.
Right. That's some really fun parts when you see that happening.
Yeah, it's like
you're serving God and you don't even realize it.
You're serving God right now. He's fulfilling His promise through you, through your labor.
Right.
Like, you can have pride in that, not a sinful, human, selfish pride. Like, oh, I work with some prideful guys. Right? I have been, and sometimes I still am, a pretty prideful guy, right? And I'm not afraid to admit that. But the pride I'm talking about is not that arrogant, self-interested, I'm better than everyone else pride. It's pride in the work we do, because this is quite literally the kingdom of God overtaking the earth. Like, that's what our labors are. And so instead of loving money, right? This is where it comes full circle. Instead of loving money, we love what we get to do for the kingdom,
right? Every
day, and that's way more motivating to me than money.
Yeah, for sure.
Money is fleeting.
It is. It stays here.
And it doesn't even last long. You put $1,000 in the bank account today, and you just leave it there for 20 years. Your interest rate is not going to keep up with inflation. Okay.
Bitcoin will, though. I got another one.
Back to crypto. Zing it. I'll ask my question again. What the heck's an NFT? I'm never going to get that Saturday Night Live skit out of my head.
Yeah.
It's too catchy.
I think you're one of the only people that watch Saturday Night. Unless it was just a clip you saw on YouTube, which is more likely.
It's just a clip.
Okay, yeah. They produce something funny every few years.
Every few years. Oh, man.
I don't know what's keeping them. Like, who's paying them? I don't know how that works. I mean, there's some rich guy behind them that,
Probably.
He needs to listen to this episode. Listen, man, you need to do things well to the glory of God. Like, whatever you're producing there is not working. There's There was a lot about giving in here. There was one thing I'm trying to remember. It was in the... No, I'll just phrase this as a question. That'll help me get this out quicker. Paul said, each of you is to put something aside. So, was that in the context of this specific gift offering for this particular situation? Mm-hmm. Or would we want to apply this, like we talked about in the beginning, this principle? Paul's telling every single person to give in the church. In this scenario, in this instance, it's a specific gift for specific people. Mm-hmm. So, like we talked about, we can't apply this initially and plainly to some type of weekly offering. But what is that? How do we apply a principle here when it comes to our giving to the church?
I think it does apply. Mm-hmm. Right. So here you have Paul saying, and not without qualification, right? Everyone in the church, each one of you, set aside from your prosperity something for this special offering. And it applied to the whole congregation because the congregation resolved, hey, we want to give to this special effort. We want to give bountifully, right? When it comes to a congregation, then for the general operation of the church, well, who agreed on paying certain costs of the church? Well, the church body did. That's as good as having a vow, right? Saying, hey, we want this building and we want to pay for it, so let's do it. The congregation commits to that.
Right.
The congregation commits to paying a teaching elder, those who work hard at preaching and teaching the gospel. And so then the congregation bears the responsibility to follow through with those things and to be sure that things that need to be paid for are paid for. When Paul says, each one of you here give, and that qualification from your prosperity to this effort, this is quite different from just the regular operating costs of the church. You know what regular operating costs are. You don't necessarily know what the saints in Jerusalem need right now or how much, so just give as much as you can, right? But when we know the costs, we can plan our contributions accordingly in a way that honors God and generously. Now, Paul is also talking here, the whole congregation is composed of adults and children and people with jobs, people without jobs, people with incomes, people without incomes, people in poverty and people in prosperity.
Yeah.
Right? The conversation becomes a little more difficult, which makes me glad that Paul put this qualification in there from your prosperity. Because there are people in the church who don't have an income, and it's maybe not their fault. We would encourage them and help them to plug into a job so they can start earning an income and start contributing. Like, that's what the church should do. We should be uplifting, edifying, building up our brothers and sisters in Christ in that way, especially helping them to live on this earth. But when it comes to people who don't have an income, like, that qualification really helps. Like, I don't have to feel guilty because I can't give anything, but I still want to give something.
Right.
And I think it ultimately comes down to the heart behind it. Like, yeah, I want to give. And then when I have something, I give. And in my experience, it's those who are in poverty who are normally more willing to give because they're not so attached to their money. And so I have seen people in poverty and people in prosperity in the same church, and the people in poverty, though they're not able to give as much, they're much more generous.
Yeah, there's been studies done actually that percentage-wise, that the more people make, the less percentage they're giving, their generosity becomes. Normally. It's interesting.
And we don't receive a percentage. Like, that's up to each person's heart.
Right.
You know the motives of your own heart.
Goodness.
I can't look at you and say, I don't think you're giving enough. I can't do that. I don't know the motives of your heart. I don't know your income. I also don't know, like, what you are able to give and not. And I certainly don't know what what has been decided between you and God on how much of your income you're going to give.
All right.
Yep. And I can speak a little more compassionately because I'm in a season of life right now where we just don't have hardly anything, but still I try to give when I can, and so I can be a little more compassionate right now because I'm actually in that season of life. But I was certainly glad that qualification was there. If that qualification wasn't there today, I would have been like, stupid, dang it.
Let's skip this message.
Let's skip this message. I wouldn't have skipped it. I'd have just been convicted. But yeah, I think the principles there certainly apply, and I think they apply to each one, even when it comes to our regular giving.
I don't think we mentioned what passage we're in.
1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 9.
Yeah.
So if somebody now wants to go in and look along with us, this later.
Sorry, we've gone off topic plenty to not even worry about that. Let's something comes to mind and I want to get a little controversial. I mean, what would a Blacktop episode be without getting a little controversial, right?
I thought we had Unraveled for that now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We don't have to be controversial.
Controversial everywhere. Well, this one's a very practical thing in life because, like Jesus said, the topic that I'm bringing up is like Jesus said that the poor will always be among you. Is it the poor? Yeah, the poor. This is fresh in my mind just because we no matter what city we're in, we run into homeless people or people begging, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter where you go; they're everywhere.
People are always in need.
So when it comes to giving, we're talking about giving and giving joyfully and taking principles, and like we can see principles here of just a generous heart of giving to others. So when we see somebody who is saying they're in need today in our context, like do we just continue to do what historically most people do? Do you ask for money, give you some money? Is that a state of mind that a Christian should have that we would admonish others to?
I think the church is responsible to take care of the poor. Absolutely. I don't think that entails the free giving of money all the time. Sometimes may warrant it.
The poor just across the board?
Just across the board, yeah. I don't think it always entails the giving of free money. I think it entails helping in a way that actually works, teaching people to fish rather than giving them fish.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the church is responsible to do that. I think God honors hard work, which is why in 1 Timothy, when we read this morning, Paul qualifies in putting widows on the distribution list, right?
Yeah.
For the distribution of funds. A widow who's over 60 years of age who has served the Lord well. Like, put her on the distribution list so that your finances aren't all tied up trying to help everybody who says they're in need. And families can take care of themselves because you're not placing those financial burdens on them every time somebody comes in and says, hey, I need something.
Right.
So I don't think it's okay to, as far as it depends on us, allow people to leech off the church. People leech off the government all the time.
Right.
That does not honor God. Hard work honors God. And to somebody who has faithfully served the Lord and is no longer able to work, add them to the distribution list. And for God's sake, have a distribution list.
Yeah.
One of the few things, instead of just handing out free money, like have a list for distribution. Like these are the approved people. Yes, make sure they have what they need. They have served the Lord well. They're disabled now. They can't do it. Like they have done well for the Lord. Let's make sure we take care of them.
I mean, it's crazy to think how many things the church global spends money on, except for the few things that we're actually instructed to. I mean, I've never been in a church that follows that plain instruction to care for qualified widows to be. That's a big burden for a church. I mean, if a church is going to as Paul says, put on a distribution list, like that's caring, that's providing the needs. Like you're talking about, most likely, if it's it's a widow, you're talking like housing and food, water. Like that's a big burden for a church. But I think it's one of the reasons it's so important that they're qualified. But I've never been in a church that does that.
Well, and how many billions of dollars do church groups and denominations pour into evangelism and missions while neglecting orphans and widows?
Good grief.
And then complain about paying someone who works hard at preaching and teaching, $20,000 a year or something. Like they'll complain about that, even though that's almost not even a wage, right?
No, that's not a wage.
And then pour billions of dollars into programs and things that don't even work.
Right.
And be biblical about the way you spend money.
Yeah. How transforming that would be if we got back to a biblical model of church.
Finance.
And we've gotten past the experimentation. It's no longer in the realm of hey, let's try this few things. There's nothing sinful about starting this program. Like we're past that now.
It doesn't work. Stop it. Yeah.
Stop it. Enough.
But it's become a sacred cow now. People don't want to let it go.
Slaughtered.
It's like all the money.
But
wasted.
we can eat cows sacrificed to idols. I was trying to get that out. I was like, there's a different analogy. I was looking for it. Worked close enough though. You got your sacred cow ministries, and we're going to sacrifice them, and then I'll eat the meat.
You're a savage.
I'm thinking about beef all the time because we can't afford it anymore. Speaking of money, it's like we go to the store, we get chicken because chicken's bountiful. Chicken and all the other secondary meats.
Yeah.
I miss some good steak.
I've gone back to just eating junk food for every meal. I'm just kidding.
Cheaper way to live.
That's the only thing I can afford now.
It's getting pretty crazy.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, that's another really applicable aspect of the topic that we're talking about. It's like, no matter your income, you get used to your lifestyle and however much money you make. And when something dramatic like what's happening in the world today happens, it doesn't matter what threshold of income you're on. Like
you're suffering.
You're pinched, man. Like you're feeling it, and
gas goes up 80 cents in 2 weeks, and everybody's gonna suffer from that.
Right.
Like.
So now it's like, well,
you planned your budget according to what was
exactly. And now we have this idea of like joyfully giving, but not under compulsion. Like again, I love as far as our church like being in the spot that we are because we don't have overhead.
Right. We don't have.
There's no salaries paid. Our rent for the church building is very, very modest, very reasonable. And yeah, I mean, like
we don't require a whole lot right now.
No, not at all. That's great. I think we're in a really good position to be in a tight recession right now, or however bad things get. And again, like how great that the people that come and worship with us, we don't have to have any burden whatsoever to compel them, to how does it hurt? Does it hurt when you give right now? Man. Like,
thank you for coming. Let me show you where the offering box is. No. Thank you for coming. Here's an offering plate. We're gonna pass right by you.
Man.
Nudge. First Sunday.
Nudge.
Look at how much I'm putting in.
Or somehow I don't know how this happens. I keep. How did I get 3 offering plates pass over my lap? like, are you trying to say something? and other churches I've been to, somehow that happens.
Thank you for coming. When you come, you're automatically a member. Here are your offering envelopes. They're already personalized.
They're personalized. You got your own account number and everything assigned to you.
Every week we're going to send you a text message to remind you to pay your tithe. Oh my gosh. Would you like to sign up for direct deposit today?
Oh, jeez. It's there. We are our own worst enemy when it comes to so many critiques against the church. I mean, we have We've done all kinds of atrocious things, and I'm talking about a lot of faithful places out there. Like there's just been really, really bad abuses when it comes to things like money and just
money and property.
Yeah, property and
building, budgets, and programs. That's where all the abuse happens. Building budgets and programs.
The waste. We do need a cleaning house. I think if the Lord's doing anything to make us be more frugal, if he strips all these budgets away from churches, it'll force churches across the country to reassess where they're putting the limited resources they now have. And hopefully it's like...
When you realize Christ designed his church to operate on a $0 a year budget,
right?
Church can do that.
Oh man, is that... should we? I don't know if this is name drop. Sorry, but I think, is it NAM? That there are church planting organizations that require you to have like a starting amount of money, like $50,000 or $100,000.
I haven't heard of NAM doing that. No.
Okay, and there was, because I had done a lot of research on various organizations a few years back, and the majority of them really focused on money. Like, what do you have to start off? Because you need this, need that.
It's like buying a franchise.
What are you doing? Right. Yeah, buy a franchise. Like, what do you need to start a church?
Someone to preach the gospel.
Yeah. And other warm bodies that believe it. Yeah.
Maybe you'll spend a few dollars on a Bible.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe because you could get free ones like at hotels and everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really $0 budget and meet in a park.
Yeah.
Under overpass, meet
or in houses like they used to do.
Right. I mean, it really is great. I have people contacting me all the time from around the world, like, "Hey, we need money, and this is the conversation I have with them. No, you don't.
Yeah. Unless you have people starving.
Right. People starving.
No homes.
People in need of housing. Yeah, there are some real needs out there.
Then you need money.
But as far as the church and preaching the gospel and growing it, no, you don't. They're like, but we want to build a $100,000 facility for the church. I'm like, you don't need that. You don't need that to be the church.
Such waste. Such waste.
Yeah. Where are we at on time, man?
We're just under the hour.
Oh, cool. Anything else we need to talk about for the end of the episode?
What the heck's an NFT?
I knew you were going to do it. That's going to be our intro song right there.
Nice.
I don't know how people would feel about the word he uses, though.
Just do... Oh, that'd be even worse.
What the
is... Well, just like some other weird songs we've done, now you got to do it. Just silence it.
Next week on Unraveled, we're talking about cussing.
We should.
Maybe.
That's another one of those things that we need to deconstruct.
Oh, man. Yeah. What is bad language?
Everything that you don't think it is.
Yeah. Well, all right. This has been Blacktop Pulpit. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon at Douglas Reformed Church. We are a small congregation here in Douglas, Arizona, and we look forward to having you and seeing you as we sincerely pursue Christ together, which we can only do because he first loved us. So there you go. We'll see you soon.